Everyone can do Facebook ads and Google ads, and everyone can create like landing pages and so on. So if everyone can create that, then what's the X factor that can help companies actually perform? And, like in the time that we've been working together, I've come to realize that there is a lot in understanding the psychology of the consumer. Not just understanding the psychology of the consumer, but actually how to tap into the different subconscious triggers that cause them to make a decision, right? And I think this is that X factor. And that being said, let's get straight into it and let's start to unpack this. So let's start with, how would you define behavioral marketing?
Great question. Behavioural marketing is really made up of two components. There's behavioural science, which is primarily about experiments and statistically significant data. And then there's behavioural economics, which is really concerned with debunking a lot of the myths that have been created around marketing by econs, i.e. that we're rational decision makers, of course, which we're not. I'll start with behavioural science, or BS, as I have a habit of converting it into an acronym as. It's crucial, in my humble opinion, for business growth. Now, why? Because it brings us closer to understanding our consumers, but it also provides the opportunity to test counter-intuitive ideals that appeal to our evolved human brains. And the trade-off that I believe we make by ignoring human psychology, as you touched on, those subconscious drivers, is that we can sometimes be blinded by an enormous number of solutions and interventions, which would only be possible if we actually stop to consider and conduct experiments around how people think, feel, and act. Now, that's the behavioral science, and it's quite, as you hear, it's quite sort of experiment focused. Behavioral economics is really the integrated insights from the psychology, neuroscience, and microeconomic theories, as well as the experiments I just spoke to. And it includes how we make market decisions and the mechanisms that drive public choice. So it's taking the sort of micro data and the deeply qualitative research that we've just done into a more macro trend that we can actually action and run campaigns around. So what behavioral marketing does is it understands the consumer driver through behavioral science. It maps it out into a way that we can address this from a campaign perspective. And then it executes campaigns speaking to drivers that are not based on how people should behave, but based on how we really behave.